Welcome to Illini Drive, 107.1 WPGU. I'm your host, Brendyn Jones. Joined as always with Nithin, Reddy on this Monday, the start to the week, this Super Bowl Monday. We discussed having. I was talking to my roommate Gabby. Should Super Bowl Monday be a holiday?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. This is a weird year because people aren't really going out.
Yeah.
There isn't that necessary reason for it.
Mm.
But as a kid growing up, I mean, I loved having I loved the idea of having Monday off after the Super Bowl because you're staying up as let's say an 8-year-old, you're staying up till 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock watching the Super Bowl. You have that all of that adrenaline going. Then you got to wake up at 6 in the morning.
To go to school or to work. Yeah, I'm in the boat that Super Bowl Monday should be a holiday. I don't love giving the NFL a holiday. We could call it something else. But yeah, it is what it is. And this Super Bowl Monday, it was a weird game last night. We'll definitely talk about that later in the show. But we got some Illinois news to take care of. 2 weeks ago, 2 Mondays back, after losses to Ohio State, Maryland, this Illinois team was ranked 19th and was in danger of continuously falling out as they looked towards a stretch of basketball that we decided at the beginning of the season was going to be the hardest for this Illinois team. In that 14 days, they have jumped 13 spots or 12, 13 spots to number 6 as what they debuted, or not debuted, as what they were ranked today.
Their previous high.
Previous high. It is what they were in the beginning of the season. No, I think weren't they 5th after they beat Duke?
I thought it was 6th. Here, I could quickly look it up. But
either way, this Illinois team is back in the upper echelon of college basketball after an insane performance by Audisumu, 21 points, 12 assists, 12 rebounds, the third triple-double in school history, the first in the last, 2 decades. Just a great performance by Audisumu. I think
previous high was 5.
Previous high was 5. I think triple-doubles kind of get a bad rap right now because they're not easy to get by any means in the NBA, but they're happening a lot more frequently. People call them stat padding. This was not only the only triple-double of Audisumu's career, I think arguably one of the best games he's ever played.
Yep.
Just based on how he looked, the shots he made, the things he was doing with the basketball, and the way he was seeing the court. Kofi Coburn had a really good day, 23 points. I think I don't have the stats right in front of me. And they took care of Wisconsin pretty handily. There was one stretch early in the second half where Wisconsin was kind of making a push, got within 7, I think. But Illinois strung out and won that game by 15 points, beating 19th ranked Wisconsin. Nithin, how'd you feel during that game?
I felt good because it's similar to the Duke game where they were winning pretty much the entire game. And it felt like they should be winning by more because of how great they were playing. They just had a couple of mistakes. And I thought this is probably the most complete game of the season that they've played. They had that 4 or 5 minute stretch in the second half where Wisconsin cut the lead to, I think, 8. But aside from that, I mean, the Illini looked great. Iowa was phenomenal. There's nothing you can really say to overhype what he did. I mean, those 20, 10, and 10 essentially is what he put up, which is so hard in college basketball, and you very rarely see it because it's so hard, because the possessions are limited, because guys getting an assist in college is not the same as getting an assist in the NBA.
Right, because NBA guys are almost automatic when they're wide open. College is a little different.
Exactly. And winning this game by 15 when it was really a 20-point game where Wisconsin hit a couple late shots to bring it close is a great win. I'm wondering if it's a little bit overrated in the sense that Wisconsin has kind of been overhyped this entire season. We saw it against Michigan. They got completely blown out. They've just been falling down the ranks. Did Illinois maybe find Wisconsin at the right time? Because they're now, 22, I think, in the Super Bowl? So they're definitely on a downward trajectory. Can't speak. But the good news is that the Illini survived this stretch. And not only did they survive this stretch, they thrived. We talked about the 4-game stretch from Iowa, Indiana, Wisconsin, Michigan. Michigan's not going to happen, or at least it's not happening immediately. So they went 3-0. The Indiana game was bad, but you pull out that victory, you get Wisconsin, you dominate that game. I think as an Illini fan, you have to feel great about this performance and these last few weeks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. With Wisconsin flailing a little bit, I think obviously it's not what we thought they were. They were ranked in the top 5 to start this season, along there with Iowa. Not what we thought it would have been. Not maybe the competition we thought it would have been. But hey, that's a win against a team that's going to be in March, or should be in the tournament if you look at it right now. So that's going to be good. They still have to play them in Madison, which I assume is going to be a tougher game. But I just want to sit here and kind of break down what Ayo Dosunmu did 2 days ago. Watching that game, there's been performances where I'm like, okay, Ayo Dosunmu's a pro, like 100%. Like he deserves his shot at the NBA. I think he could be a rotational man in the league, right? Yesterday was the most pro performance I'd ever seen from Ayo Dosunmu. There wasn't a person in a red Wisconsin jersey that could guard him. Inside the paint, outside, he was taking guys off the dribble, making people look silly throughout the entire game. Just rewatch the highlights. The passes that he was making, they were patient yet precise and accurate and timely. There were a few times where he faked ball passes to force a defender to choose and then hit the other guy, passing people wide open. There was one pass where he hit Jacob Grandison in the corner. Jacob Grandison missed a shot. Ayo gets the tip. Grandison cuts. Before he even sets his feet, Ayo passes it right down into the paint. Grandison's wide open for a layup. Ayo was at times like passing people so open that he didn't even look at the shot go in. That's how confident he was in his ability and his teammates' ability. I think that, and we can discuss this as the season closes. Obviously, there's still significant time left to play. A lot of things can happen. But as you look at how successful Illinois has been, kind of on the back of Ayo, obviously Kofi Coburn has played phenomenal as well, and the role players have played the best they have since the start of the season. But then you look west of Illinois into Iowa, and they're struggling right now, losing 4 of their last 5, 1 to Illinois. When you look at this, it's starting to make me think where I definitively had Luka Garza as the best player in the Big Ten. I think that conversation or that needle is shifting for the first time in these last 2 years to maybe Ayo Dosunmu has a case for that. How true do you think that statement is?
I think he's had a case this entire season, but it's always really been a case as you're 1B to 1A in Garza. And it's getting closer. I think what we saw early in the season is still in the back of people's minds. Like, unless Luka Garza goes on a 5-game stretch where he doesn't score 20 points in any of those games and Iowa continues to lose, this is his award to lose. To lose, yeah. And he's a guaranteed first-team All-Big Ten. His best case, I think, now is first-team All-American. Yeah. Because I do think Luka Garza is going to be a first-team All-American. I think that's almost guaranteed.
100%.
And I think Big Ten Player of the Year is almost guaranteed at this point. Iowa has a chance if the Illini end up becoming, like, let's say Illinois wins out, Iowa averages 25, 6, and 7, something like that down the stretch. There's a chance. But Luka Garza statistically is still pretty far ahead of Iowa. And the national narrative has always been Luka Garza 100%. Is the best player in college basketball. And I have a tough time seeing that shift happen, even though Iowa has struggled immensely.
Iowa just lost yesterday, being swept by Indiana and Trace Jackson Davis, a team that Illinois beat twice this year already. They've struggled. Who else did they lose to? Illinois and
Ohio
State. No, in no means are any of those losses terrible. I think Indiana has had some tough breaks. I think Indiana is a tournament team. Losing to them twice is bad, but losing to Ohio State, losing to losing to Illinois in State Farm Center, those aren't terrible losses by any means. But the thing is that for this conversation about Luka Garza versus Audisumu, when you look at Audisumu, I just think he's so much more of a complete player than Luka Garza. In that second Indiana game, Luka Garza had 18 points, which he's always going to score. Mm-hmm. But it was the second time, I think, this year he scored under 20. The other one was against Illinois.
He also had 10 points in the first, I think, 6 minutes of the game.
Yeah.
Before the under 12-minute timeout.
100%. And only 2 rebounds. Like, I understand you're playing against, guys like Trace Jackson Davis, Race Thompson. Just guys who are always going to, make it hard for you to rebound. But 2 rebounds as the biggest guy on your team is – it's kind of, hard to look at. And then, 0 assists. I just feel like sometimes he's very one-dimensional in that offense either thrives because of him or, when he struggles, it's very hard for them to win. Granted, they lost on a almost buzzer-beater shot. It's not like they were dominated by Indiana at any means, but it's just something to think about as the year closes. Hopefully, Ayo can keep adding to his case. That would be insane to have a Big Ten Player of the Year, Illinois, maybe even a Wooden Award winner at Illinois as the season closes out. But then there's still guys on Gonzaga and Baylor who have that conversation too. So
yeah, the argument with those teams is that they're just so good that teams don't matter as much. Like Jared Butler, a lot of people think he's going to be a first-team All-American, but if you compare his stats with Ayo, he's more efficient, but he's not surpassing Ayo in really anything. The thing is, I think best case scenario, yes, All-American, Bob Cousy. That's where Ayo should go. If they consider him a point guard, which I think he should be considered a point guard.
I think he should. I think his playmaking is a lot better.
He's the lead guard on this team.
Right, and he's leading this team in assists. And
exactly. So that's the best case for Ayo. But for Illinois, the best case is like third best team in the country right now.
Yeah, it's foreseeable. Because when you look above them, it's Michigan, it's Villanova, and it's Ohio State. Those are the 3 teams that are ranked above Illinois right now.
Michigan could very easily drop off. Also.
100%.
And Illinois plays Ohio State to end the season. That could be playing for maybe not a Big Ten title, just because Michigan has those losses ahead of Ohio State and Illinois, but playing for the considered best team, I guess, in the Big Ten.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, when you look at these rankings, I wouldn't say that Illinois is a worse team than Ohio State, especially right now. We saw them play Ohio State right kind of at the end of their midseason struggles. It was a close game, and that was probably one of the worst games we've seen Illinois play at that time.
Yeah, it was a game where they even had some bad luck with the Dwayne Washington Jr.
100%.
call. They were completely out of it in the first half and came back. It's I don't want to say it's a throwaway game, but it's a game with some.
I just think it's a game that really hurts because if that game was flipped, I think Illinois would be in Ohio State's position right now in terms of this team that has really shot up the rankings in the last 2 weeks. Illinois might have been that fifth ranked overall team. But then you look at Michigan, and Michigan has obviously handled these new strain of the coronavirus issues. Their women's team is coming back on the 11th, I think, and then that Illinois game that was scheduled for the 11th is still going to be postponed. But I would assume that the men's team would come back soon after that, because it has been the 14 days period that they were on pause for. But when you look at Michigan, what's going to be tough for them is coming back and having to make up an Iowa, an Ohio State, and an Illinois game. You have to imagine they're going to lose one of those games, maybe even 2, especially if they come back and those are the first people they have to play.
I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they lost them all, because
they might,
the way the schedule is set up, there's not a lot of wiggle room.
Right.
There's not really a lot of time at the end of the season unless push back the Big Ten tournament, but then you have to push back March Madness, really, and I don't think the NCAA is okay with that yet. Maybe they condense the Big Ten tournament, but that seems very unlikely as well.
Yeah, it seems hard because it's 4 days, and but when you look at this Michigan team, it's going to be hard for them to, if they're going to have to play these games, which I would imagine they're going to make up the ranked games first. I think that would make more sense, having to play Ohio State, having to play Illinois, having to play Iowa, just because those are the top 4 teams in the conference right now. But yeah, we'll see. We don't know fully what's going on. This team is the best they've looked all year in these last 3 games. In reality, I mean, we saw it with I would assume Kobe Coburn against Iowa. Then you saw it with the bench players, and not the bench players, the role players against Indiana. Now you saw it with Iowa and Kofi again against Wisconsin. This team has a legitimate chance to win out. However, we've also seen this team shoot themselves in the foot multiple times this year. So we'll see. I mean, I'm excited. I know Nithin's excited.
Oh, yeah.
When we come back from break, we will kind of go into a deep dive of the rest of their schedule and give our end of the year record predictions. So stick with us on the Line of Drive, 107.1 WPGU. Welcome back to Illini Drive on WPGU 107.1. Me and Nithin were geeking out about this schedule and trying to make up the Michigan Illinois game that has officially been postponed. Right now, I think Illinois is scheduled. There's rumors going around. There hasn't been an official release. I don't know, Nithin, if you saw this. I saw it a couple minutes before the show started. But on the Nebraska and on the Illinois website, if you guys remember, earlier this season, Nebraska had to pause their basketball operations, missing a game with Illinois. Mm-hmm. Apparently, on the FightingIllini.com, they're scheduled in pretty soon.
Yeah, they have March 2nd to March 4th. So I didn't actually realize this, but that would give at least Illinois. I haven't looked at Nebraska's schedule. Illinois plenty of time to play Wisconsin and then go to Ohio State.
Right, exactly. So, but as we look at this, right, for some reason, I guess I just wasn't following the schedule. I thought Michigan also missed a game against Iowa. I thought they missed so many games. They've only missed 3 games because of the pause that they are currently still on. Indiana, Northwestern, and Illinois. They're still scheduled to play Ohio State on February 21st, and they're scheduled to play Iowa on the 34th, which are going to be 2 important games, not only for Big Ten seeding as we move closer to the Big Ten tournament, but for NCAA rankings and NCAA tournament seeding as you look at, teams like Michigan, Illinois, Ohio State, and Iowa that are Iowa, who's kind of struggling right now, but is still, ranked high in Ken Palm, stuff like that, as they look toward seeding and whatnot. And we've been trying to figure out where Illinois could make up this game against Michigan, because if Illinois continues to play the way they do, this is going to be a deciding game of who is crowned Big Ten champion, stuff like that. So, Nithin, where do you see, is there anywhere that you could puzzle this game in?
So we were talking about this, and it's very hard. It's very hard because Illinois ends their season on March 6th. Michigan ends their season on March 7th. Really, before that, there isn't any time to try to make up the game.
Right.
March 10th is the Big Ten tournament. So potentially a March 9th game. You may be able to convince both teams, but there's a couple of problems. One, Michigan only has 1 day off between those 2 games, which they really probably won't want. And secondly, how will, as you said, this affect seeding? Because we're assuming this works if both teams have a double bye. And even then, they still might say, we don't want to play because a double bye only gives you 2 days off, which it is enough for these teams.
Right.
College teams, especially a team that earned a double bye,
will say those days.
Yeah, we want
100%, as you should.
So that's one question mark. Then if, let's say, Illinois loses, and it would take a kind of a lot at this point for Illinois to get off of a double bye, because they have, well, I guess actually not really. They only have a game and a half above the 5th seed in the Big Ten, Purdue. So it would take, let me look at their schedule. It would probably take like 4 losses, 4 losses, to guarantee, to be guaranteed off of that double bye. But you never know what's going to happen. And they're going to have to schedule this game out, I'm guessing, at least like a week before. And that leaves a lot up in the air.
It is. But I think that this game might be that important. right? If you look at this could be easily sold as a national television game, depending on if you do it on the right night. We're not, another game like this is happening. This could be a night game, nationally televised. If Michigan and Illinois, or if Michigan comes back and doesn't stumble, and is the same team we saw they were before they had to go on pause, and Illinois continues the way they've been playing this last week and a half, doesn't stumble, it's going to be a 1-2 matchup in the Big Ten, deciding who is the regular season Big Ten champion and who has the better path to the Big Ten championship, or the easier seeded path to the Big Ten championship game. I think that there's going to be a lot of pressure to make these games up, especially if you're like maybe an Illinois or an Ohio State sitting at the top of the rankings, wondering, have we done more to deserve this first seed in the Big Ten tournament than a team that was on pause for 3.5 weeks? So it'll be interesting. It'll be really interesting as this continues to develop.
Brendyn, I think we should play out this scenario. Why don't we go through each schedule?
All right, bet. Let's
look through the wins and losses. Let's start with the Illinois schedule.
Okay.
You got Nebraska, Northwestern, Minnesota, Michigan State. I'd say I feel confident they're going to go 4-0 in that stretch. I wouldn't say it.
I'm not going to ever say confident with Illinois basketball.
That's fair. But the teams that you have to play, Nebraska, Northwestern, those should be automatic wins.
They have to be. At this point of the season, when you've already gone through your little stretch of adversity and you beat Iowa and you beat Wisconsin and you did a lot to beat Indiana to stay on that now a 4-game winning streak. These are games that the Kinks have to be a part of the past. These are games that if you lose, there's still real questions about you. If you win, you continue that trajectory of being a top team in the nation.
Mm-hmm. At Minnesota, that's the concerning one. Yeah. I still feel good about Illinois winning this game just because witnessing that game in Champaign
was wild.
Kofi was so dominant.
Yeah.
Him alone. Minnesota had no answers. Trent was so good against Marcus Carr. I have a tough time seeing a 30-point difference in score.
Yeah.
For this game especially, because I don't think Minnesota is a good matchup. Illinois is a good matchup for Minnesota. So and then Michigan State hasn't looked good all year. I'd feel confident in that win. If we want to be conservative, why don't we say 3-1?
Sure.
So 3-1,
which I hate because they need to be 4-0. But given Illinois through these last 2 years, they have consistently dropped games, which they shouldn't have.
Yeah. So then the last 3 games: Wisconsin, Nebraska, Ohio State. Nebraska, that should be a win.
Needs to be.
Wisconsin, Ohio State. Let's say they split that.
Yeah.
So what are we at? We're at 5-1, 5-2.
5-2, which would lead them at 14-5 in the Big Ten.
Yeah. So Michigan on the other side. Let's get their schedule up.
So their first game back scheduled Valentine's Day against Wisconsin. Even though Wisconsin is flailing a little bit, coming back from a 3-week hiatus to play a ranked team, that's going to be tough. I'm still based on what I've seen from Wisconsin, I'm still going to give Michigan that win. It is tough though because it's been a while since they've even been able to use any facilities, practice. They'd have to hit the ground running, but I believe they can do it against Wisconsin. Yeah. Then 4 days later, they play right now ranked 25 Rutgers, Ron Harper Jr. We know what he did to Illinois, how good that team can be when they're firing on all cylinders. How do you feel about that game?
It feels like a game Rutgers wins.
Yeah, me too. At Rutgers too.
No, this is a home game, I'm pretty sure.
Is it? Oh, yeah, I'm reading that wrong.
It's a home game. So that does change it a bit. But Rutgers is scary when they're going. And
we saw it firsthand.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're going right now.
So I tend to think they split those first 2 games.
Down. And then 3 days later, they face Ohio State, ranked 4th. We saw what Ohio State was able to do to Indiana, to Iowa, and we've seen that they're number 4 for a reason. They've had a phenomenal last 4 weeks of basketball, beating a lot of people in the Big Ten. They look good. How do you feel about that game?
I'm going to say a loss for that one, but it's really a pick 'em at that point.
Yeah, I agree.
But just what I've seen from Ohio State recently, they're playing
really good.
They look like the best team in the country for the last 3 weeks.
They're up there. Yeah.
And yeah, it's a reason why they're 4th in the country. Michigan, yes, they'll have 2 games in their belt, but you're not going to face an offense like Ohio State until this game.
100%. And then you look at, they have a 6-day layoff until Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
Indiana, any way that Trace Jackson Davis just goes off and wins this game.
I mean, he could. Like, he's
Yeah.
done it twice against Iowa, and he almost did it against Illinois.
Yeah.
I'm going to still say no, though, just because Michigan's bigs are better defensively than Iowa, and they should be able to contain everyone else in Indiana. I'm not scared about really anyone else on Indiana.
That puts them at 2-2. Then they have to face Iowa. Maybe that's not until 3 weeks from now, so maybe Iowa gets it back together.
This one's kind of hard to gauge.
Yeah, I think it just depends on if Iowa is hitting on all cylinders, right? And Wisekamp and maybe CJ Frederick's back and Jordan Bohannon are all playing, the great shooters and CJ Frederick, the good defender that he is. And it allows Luka Garza to kind of have that freedom and do what he needs to do. This could be a win for Iowa. We've seen them beat teams just by totally outscoring them.
Mm-hmm.
But if their offense struggles, like it did a little bit against Illinois, like it's done against Indiana twice, there's no way Iowa wins this game.
Yeah. And I think from what you've said, really, at this point, I'd pick Michigan. But similar to the Ohio State game, it can be a pick 'em, and I wouldn't be surprised if we get to this game. Iowa's like the 7th best team in the country, the 8th best team in the country.
100%.
They've reclaimed some of their losses from the last few weeks. But yeah, I'll say a win at this point.
Then they close out against Michigan State. Obviously, that is a rivalry game. Who's going to run Michigan? However, Michigan State's not that good this year. So how do you feel?
I'm guessing you're feeling the same way as me. That's a win.
Yeah.
For now,
especially they'd be back for a month at that point. That is if they don't have to play Illinois in that stretch. If they don't have to make up any other games, that would leave them with a finished record of 12-3 in the Big Ten. 2 games up on maybe 1.5, depending on how they factor in wins on Illinois. I think that.
Well, no, Illinois would be 14-5, right?
Right. So they would have 2 more losses, but then 2 more wins.
Yeah. So if we're going by games above 500, which that's typically what teams do, but although they're typically playing the same amount of games, they'd be tied. And Michigan would probably get the tiebreaker with win percentage.
Yeah.
But honestly, who knows what they're going to do because
no, they have to figure that out.
Yeah, teams aren't playing the same amount of games, so it's really hard to determine. We saw it in football. It's hard to determine who is going to be the conference champion because it matters for awards. It also matters for seeding, more importantly, in the Big Ten tournament.
Definitely. So we'll see. I think that just makes our case that this Illinois Michigan game, like if things pan out the way we do, and I think we did a really conservative, realistic thing. I think Illinois could win out if they, if all the stars align. I also think Michigan could win out if all the stars align.
Yeah. I think we were pretty conservative with both our estimates.
Yeah, 100%.
Because if they play as they should play, there's really only one game D-line I'd say aren't favored. That's Ohio State. Every other game, they just demolished Wisconsin. So that should be a win, although it's on the road. But Nebraska, Minnesota, Michigan State, Northwestern, those are teams that are just flat out better than.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll see. I really want to see this Illinois-Michigan game happen before the Big Ten tournament. But if everything goes well and that's what we have to see on the last day of the Big Ten tournament, I will not be mad. That is going to lead us into our second break. When we come back, what happened last night? That is the worst we see the Chiefs offense play under Patrick Mahomes. Has a lot to do with that Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. And then Tom Brady want to go get himself a 7th ring. That and everything else when we come back on Illini Drive, 107.1 WPGU. Welcome back to Illini Drive on 107.1 WPGU. I didn't think it was going to happen. When 2 weeks ago, when this matchup was determined, I was like, okay, well, this is going to be Patrick Mahomes ushering out Tom Brady, who in his time has been the greatest quarterback of all time, and kind of taking the reins as the guy in the league. That was my fault for underestimating Tom Brady on a stage that he has been to 9 times before, with a team that was clicking through the second half of the season and a defense that is goodness yesterday played the best defense anybody has played on the Chiefs since Patrick Mahomes, gained the starting spot. It was a blowout. It wasn't close. Kind of knew at halftime, maybe the first touchdown the Buccaneers scored in the second half, that it was kind of over. 31-9. This is like the lowest point total that Patrick Mahomes has had since he was, like, I think, a sophomore in high school. Something crazy
First time
like that.
below 10 points.
First time,
since high school.
Yeah, which is one, like, a crazy wild stat. The other stat is that he hasn't lost an NFL game by more than one possession ever. Until obviously yesterday. The Chiefs had an O-line deficiency, which is notable, but I think this just speaks to how dominant the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense was. That pass rush is insane with JPP, with Ndamukong Suh. Devin White played out of his mind. I've never seen anybody just completely, like, make Travis Kelce look normal. But that's what they did last night, maybe even, a step below normal. It was insane. And throughout the entire game, Patrick Mahomes was being hounded in the backfield. He was running around everywhere. I think there was a stat that, like, he almost had like 500 yards of scrambling before throwing the ball or being sacked. That's insane. There was just the pass rush was, and I know I'm speaking on the defense, but I think it's just whenever you beat Patrick Mahomes, you kind of have to outscore him. You never shut him down, and this is the first time it's happened. So I do want to spend time on the offense. They played really, really well. They protected Tom Brady. He only had 1 sack for 6 yards. Rob Gronkowski played like it was 2015. And that's something to marvel at. This team, this offense was phenomenal. I think the MVP should have went to that defensive effort. I don't know if you give it to one person specifically. Maybe the entire defense gets to share it.
Yeah, but you can't really do that.
I know, but it's just, I mean, not to say that this isn't by any means like a when Julian Edelman won Super Bowl MVP. Tom Brady did a lot in that game that made them successful, gave them the opportunity to score all the time. But that defense, what it was able to do is the best defensive effort I've seen against the Chiefs, as I said before. That was insane.
That was, and I really didn't think Mahomes played terribly.
I think he played, I don't want to say phenomenally, but I think he did a lot, and the team around him did not do a lot.
Yeah, I think that's important to know. I mean, the team kind of failed him
100%.
yesterday, and he really should have had 2 touchdowns. He had that Tyreek Hill throw where it hits him in the head, then another one where what was it, 4th down or 3rd down? He's being tackled on the way down, sidearm throwing it to, I forget who the receiver was. I think it might have been Mecole Hardman.
Hits him in the face.
Yeah. Another drop. That would have been a touchdown.
He was horizontal in the air.
Yeah.
Flicked it sidearm. 30 yards.
And the previous throw, he's getting hit.
That whole sequence. He made insane. 3 insane throws that the first one was a little high. That would have been a touchdown if it was maybe 2 feet short.
Are you talking about the Tyreek Hill one?
It was one, I think it was Hardman who it was, I think it was on like first down, or maybe 2nd and 9. And Patrick Mahomes is running out right as he hits the sideline, throws a dot, and it's just maybe a foot too high. Bounces off the top of the fingertips. If that was maybe a foot lower, but the other 2 throws, the one where he's like literally getting spun around, and then the one where he's completely horizontal in the air, just perfect throws.
Yeah, and he made some great throws, but he also he missed 6 completions. He had 6 incompletions early in the game.
They were bad.
He wasn't good. But Tampa Bay, I mean, I knew their defense was good this entire season. Like, I always felt they were a top 10 defense. But they looked like 2018 Bears. They looked like vintage 2000 Ravens. They looked like, what was it, last year's Patriots? That was the best defense in the league. They looked like what we thought the Steelers' defense was early in the year. They were phenomenal. I mean, this isn't the same team that gave up 38 points to the Saints.
Yeah, not at all.
I was in pure shock because I expected the Chiefs to make a comeback at some point.
I did.
And then the fourth quarter came, and it's like
wow.
They're just
They
not
still haven't
making
scored
it.
a touchdown.
They haven't scored a touchdown. They're settling for field goals. Patrick Mahomes has thrown, was it 2 picks or 1 pick?
He threw 2 picks in the game.
He threw 2 picks.
One was late though.
Yeah, one was the tip by like Antoine Winfield. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they shot themselves in the foot, the Chiefs, so much. We saw it in the first half where a lot of really bad penalties that led to points. There was also some questionable calls. Some of the holdings didn't really look like holdings, but the Bucs completely outplayed the Chiefs.
Yeah.
It wasn't even close.
Yeah. That game was insane. Again, not something that I had thought was going to happen. But yeah, I mean, credit to Tom Brady, credit to that. It's wild. I think some funny things here. I hate how they let the owners speak first in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I don't really know why they're speaking.
I don't know why. They don't do anything, especially Tampa Bay. It's not like this is a dynasty. This is, you guys are lucky that Tom Brady wanted to go to Tampa Bay and recruited Antonio Brown and Rob Gronkowski.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys were able to get him because he wanted to go there. Ownership had nothing to do with this win. And we can stand by that. I think Bruce Arians gave a phenomenal speech. Obviously, he has a lot to do with it, but he immediately was like, you guys did everything.
Yeah.
I also hate how they let Tom Brady's kids touch the Lombardi trophy before they let anybody else. That made me so frustrated. I was like, like Ndamukong Suh and JPP, Suh, who I think is his first championship, JPP, who'd been there once before with the Giants, are just like, wow, like we were just harassing Vita Vea. We were just harassing Patrick
Devontae
Mahomes.
David, who previously, what was it, in the previous round, he was crying, and Tom Brady was like, stop crying. We have more work to do.
All these guys who just showed up, and then it's like, oh, man, Tom Brady's daughter's up there, like, all over the trophy. I would have been a little salty, but I don't know. I didn't win a Super Bowl yesterday, so.
To think Taylor Heineke almost beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah. That would have been wild.
That would have been.
This leaves the question, right? The question we ask every time Tom Brady's won a Super Bowl in the last 5 years. Was this his last one?
Who knows at this point?
I don't know. I can't say definitively.
I'm not going to say yes because he's old. This team they're bringing back, I doubt, is going to be as good. Like, Leonard Fournette's probably going to leave.
Think so?
Yeah, I think he's going to get a better deal.
Yeah.
Like, they're not going to get him on a minimum deal. Guys like him, AB, Gronk's probably going to stay just because he's done everything he needs to, and now he's just kind of settled. But the point stands that it's hard to replicate something when it's very much like a Miami Heat team in the early 2010s, where they brought in these old, solid role players that could have made $5-10 million and decided to make minimum deals because they wanted to win a title. It's hard to replicate that in football.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think I've said this probably twice before. I'm going to say it again. I think it's his last one. I think that whole 7 thing is really big. Like, obviously, he'd been the most in football, but I think having it over Jordan is something nice, especially in football where it's, I would consider it harder to win a championship in football than it is in basketball. To have sustained success in football other than basketball, I think that's phenomenal for Tom Brady. I don't think he has anything left to prove. I think next year might be a stats year for him. You would assume I assume Drew Brees is retiring after this year.
Yeah. So maybe he just tries to.
So maybe he just tries to like close the door on those stats that him and Drew Brees have been fighting for the last 15 years. But yeah, I mean, it's wild to think about that might have been the last time Tom Brady wins a championship. It's also wild to think about we've said that 3 times before, and he just keeps doing it. Yeah. But we'll see. We'll see what happens with this roster, this Tampa Bay roster, as they come back. And see if they can kind of replicate it. On the other end, how far does this, and I don't even want to say the GOAT conversation because I think Patrick Mahomes is so young. He has so much more to prove. He's, I think, one of the most talented guys we've ever seen, but in terms of greatness, that doesn't equate all the way. What does this team have to do now as they, hit their second Super Bowl in a row? third championship game in a row. What does this team have to do to continue that success as we see guys come up in the AFC? Josh Allen, you have to think Lamar Jackson might still be there. You know, to sustain the success and try to run it back. Because I feel like you can't tell me that the Chiefs didn't think they should have won this game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I don't even know what the answer is to that question, because if you play this game again, I still might pick the Chiefs.
I would repick the Chiefs.
Because watching the game, it just felt like a flukishly bad performance by Kansas City. We've never seen them play this bad under Patrick Mahomes in the now 3 years that he's been at the helm. That's a 50-plus game sample. And we've seen in the playoffs time and time again him play great, him come from behind. We saw it in the New England game, his second year in the league. We saw it last year in the Super Bowl when they're down big to San Francisco and then Mahomes turned it on. But we've never seen him just, I don't want to say fall apart, but really the team fell apart. We never saw that run, and it never came. And I know Tampa Bay is a good defense, but I still don't think they're the best defense in the league.
Yeah, I think they just had a phenomenal performance. Something that, like I said, this is the first time in 3 years we've seen a team just shut down the offense. Just like this is the first time in 3 years, and that seems like something that with the Chiefs is just like, you know, but it can't be understated how good of an offensive run this Chiefs team has had. To have that one game that you play really bad and come in the Super Bowl is bad luck. It's, you know, and that is what it is. But yeah, I wouldn't put money on Tampa Bay being able to do that again.
Yeah, because Kansas City was basically unbeatable in the regular season. They lost one game, and it was because the Raiders scored 40 points. Really, the Raiders were the only team that put up great fights, I'd say, against the Chiefs. But it's just a huge disparity for how well they played. Because even in the playoffs, even as recently as last round, they dominated the Bills. They got off to that slow start, and really it wasn't on the offense. It was just a weird play where Mecole Hardman drops a ball, and the Buffalo Bills score a touchdown off of it. But after that, it was over. Kansas City dominated the rest of the way. The previous round, the only reason the Browns were in it was because Mahomes gets hurt halfway through the third quarter. And Chad Henne really didn't do anything until that last play those last two plays where he won the game, essentially. I don't think I'll ever truly understand what happened and why Kansas City fell apart. And I guess that's my way of saying, like, I think they'll come back and they'll be fine.
100%. Yeah, weird game, but I had fun watching the Weeknd. I think his performance was phenomenal. And I'm not even like a huge Weeknd fan. But that was fun. It was just weird also seeing all those people in one place. I think they made it look like anytime they would do close up, like there was like a good amount of cutouts. So it made it look like the stadium was full, which I think is cool, but it was still so many people there. So that was like really weird.
Yeah, the good thing is they brought in a lot of vaccinated people.
Yeah.
So there isn't as much of a risk as at least them getting COVID.
I hated watching the box solo shots.
Yeah.
Like with people's families and stuff. It's like, dang, that's tough.
Did you see that the Goodell Russell Wilson shot?
Yeah. Was that late in the game?
I think it was like in the middle of the game, either start of the third or.
Because Russell Wilson won Man of the Year?
Yeah, Walter Payton Man of the Year. I'm watching this and I'm like, does Russell Wilson really want to be here at this time?
I'm sure he didn't. I'm sure he didn't, especially sitting next to Goodell. I don't know if a lot of people like Goodell.
Yeah.
Wilson strikes me as some guy who respects him. Okay. But yeah, that leaves us with no football for the next 7 or 8 months
till August.
Till August,
late August.
That's tough, but it's cool because basketball is making its way into the summer now. So we'll have something to look forward to, and baseball is just right around the corner.
Yeah, this is really the beginning of the basketball season.
Yeah,
because fans kind of take, I'd say, November, December, January off of watching the NBA. And then they tune back in around here. And then, of course, March. We're 1 month. How many days are we? We're a month and a week away from Selection Sunday.
Yeah.
That's great to hear.
Especially because we didn't have it last year.
Yeah. I mean, knock on wood, we have it this year.
Yeah, it's still not a guarantee.
But we have a team that's exciting to watch, and also it's a much better college basketball season than a year ago because
it was. And last year I had fun.
Last year I did too. There was really only 2 teams you could say were good, Kansas and Dayton.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of question marks. This year I guess we do have 2 great teams, but we also have those mid-level teams, the Illinois, the Michigans, the Ohio States, the Villanova.
That can still be exciting in the tournament.
And could provide great talents.
100%. Well, that does it for our show today. Tomorrow it'll be Gabby and someone else. Josh is at home for the rest of the week right now. But yeah, and then next time I want to talk a lot NBA. Next time me and Nithin get back on here. Didn't get to do that today. But yeah, for Nithin, it's been Atlanta Drive 107.1 WPGU.